Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to you. Thanks for coming along today. The first full day of autumn, and it really feels like it, doesn't it?
I'm a little chilly. I've got the space heater on behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big shock. Don't think that's like a super autumnal thing because I've been running it since June.
Right. It happens every day.
Yeah.
However, it's 55 out there right now.
Listen, I got to salute my niece, Meg,
Why is that?
because she made homemade soup and baked bread, and that's what I ate for lunch.
See, it's too early for soup. I was on the beach last week.
It's not too
It's too early.
Listen, right before we went to air, what did you tell me?
Well, that was chilly.
No.
What?
What are you doing this weekend?
Oh, I'm switching over my clothes. I'm doing the old switcheroo. You do
What?
that?
What, so you're going to switch over your clothes to winter clothes, but it's too early to eat soup.
Well, soup, it's a long winter, Kath. I got 6 months of soup eating. I'm going to hold that back as far as possible.
What, so you want to have BLTs for longer?
Maybe. I like to. Oh, that's a good idea. So I still got some tomatoes, don't you?
I didn't grow tomatoes this year.
Well, I didn't either, but on the way back from the beach, I stopped at a little stand and bought a nice big chunk of them.
Well, I don't have. You're not sharing any tomatoes?
I wasn't that big of a chunk. Just saying.
Kind of harsh.
Anyway, so it's cold, 55 degrees. Anyway,
Yeah.
Thanks for being along today. We got a big show for you. We do.
Yeah, I'm
Super
excited. We're going to welcome Liz Bruning from staff writer at The Atlantic. One of my favorite writers is going to be on the show today. Very excited to welcome Liz. We're also going to talk about how to make a better, crispier grilled cheese sandwich.
And who doesn't want a better?
I think everybody wants that. Also, one of Pittsburgh Business Times 30 Under 30, Talfa Harris, will be on the show for the first time later this afternoon also.
Very nice. Okay, as we always do, we kick off the show, other than the tomfoolery. Kath brings us up to date with the news items of the day. Won't you please give us, Kath, the top 4 at 4?
For Thursday, John. September 20th. I like that. September 23rd, 2021. Number 1. A top U.S. envoy to Haiti tendered his resignation, citing the Biden administration's inhumane effort to expel hundreds of Haitian migrants to their home country, which is recovering from a deadly earthquake and plagued by political instability, widespread insecurity, and crippling poverty. According to CBS News, Ambassador Daniel Foote, who was chosen to be the U.S. Special Envoy to Haiti in July, called the Biden administration's policy in Haiti, quote, deeply flawed, saying his recommendations were brushed aside. In response to a recent sharp increase in arrivals of Haitians in the Texas border community of Del Rio and the emergence of a massive camp there that at one point housed 15,000 migrants, the Biden administration launched a deportation blitz to Haiti. Since Sunday, the U.S. has carried out 12 deportation flights to Haiti, expelling more than 1,400 migrants there, according to the Department of Homeland Security, which has said the expulsions will continue, quote, on a regular basis. Number 2. A federal health official has said there isn't enough data to support giving a Pfizer booster dose to people who have received other COVID-19 vaccines. In case you're confused, this might confuse you just a little bit more.
Good.
According to the Wall Street Journal, last evening the FDA authorized the extra dose for people 65 and older or at high risk of severe COVID-19, according to those who work in healthcare, at grocery stores, or who are teachers. Apparently, though, data isn't yet available about the interchangeability of a booster dose of one vaccine with the primary series of another. So, like if you had Moderna and you were at risk and you were going to get a booster shot, could you get Pfizer's shot? They're saying, we don't really know.
Of course not.
Okay, let's not wade in to all that yet.
Right. Some
Let's
people are
not be
looking for
doing that.
boosters. Others want religious exemptions. We just want a crispy grilled cheese.
And number 3. I was going to say something else about the shots, but then I figured
After that,
forget it. Number 3, flight attendants, airline officials, and airport representatives are testifying today before a House subcommittee as lawmakers consider whether harsher penalties are needed to deter bad behavior on airplanes.
Like, what are they going to do? Push people out the window?
I don't know. We're going to
How
find
harsh
out.
can-
Listen, according to the Washington Post, the FAA instituted a zero-tolerance policy in January. Zero tolerance.
What does that mean?
Earlier this month, the Transportation Security Administration, which enforces a mask mandate in transportation settings, doubled fines for those who refuse to comply. But today's hearing before the Subcommittee on Aviation is more evidence of the growing concern that those measures haven't stopped passengers from assaulting crew members and fellow passengers or flouting requirements that they wear masks on commercial aircraft. The FAA said this week it has received, are you ready? 4,300 385 reports of unruly passenger incidents, most of which involve masks. The increase has prompted both chambers on Capitol Hill to voice concerns about airplane behavior. The FAA said it has launched 789 independent investigations this year, which is more than double what they did for 2019 and 2020 combined.
No surprise.
The agency has begun enforcement actions in 162 cases and proposed more than $1 million in fines. Nearly 3/4 of cases involve a passenger refusing to wear a mask. Get over yourself. Number 4. Hines Ward, who made 1,000 receptions, not counting, of course, the touchdown grab that helped to win Super Bowl 40, is among 5 former Pittsburgh Steelers named as modern era nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2022.
Go Hines.
According to Jerry DePaula in today's Trib, Hines Ward, who has been a semifinalist 5 previous times, is joined by kicker Gary Anderson, who my mom and I chased around the Westview Kmart when I was a child. Nose tackle Casey Hampton. I think his nickname was Big Snack, as I remember.
Right.
Tight end Heath Miller and linebacker Hardy Nickerson Sr. The Hall of Fame announced a list of 122 modern era nominees, which will be trimmed to a list of 25 semifinalists in November and then 15 finalists in January. The selection committee will meet after that to select the 2022 class, which will be enshrined next August. And that, my friends, is your top 4 at 4.
Very nice. So go back into the story about the blue light special. You and Gary Anderson and your mom. You and Nanny chasing.
Yeah, me and Nan.
What's going on
Listen,
there?
we were at the Westview Kmart. It was shortly before Christmas.
How old were you?
I don't know, 5th grade, maybe?
But Nanny saw Gary Anderson?
No, I saw Gary Anderson. Maybe I was a little older than that. 7th grade, maybe. Anyway, he was picking, I still remember, he was picking out Transformers.
For his kids.
For his kids. And I was like, that's Gary Anderson. And Nanny was like, it sure is. And so he took off to go get hardware. And Nanny was like, well, we should follow him.
Of course we should. We stalked the poor man.
Sure. So we chased him around Kmart.
Did you speak to him?
We did. He was very nice. And we said, we're sorry. This is probably creepy. And he was like, yeah. And we said, okay, bye.
Blue Light Special, aisle number 6, Gary Anderson and Transformers. Blue Light Special. Don't forget your bologna sandwiches on the way out the door. Right?
I liked Gary.
Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. I mean, he was really consistent, was he not?
Yeah, he was.
Very good.
And he was very nice to do crazy people. So.
Well, I'm sure he was used to it. Such is life.
I don't know if kickers are used to that sort of thing.
I think they might be if you're that caliber.
I wish I could have seen Big Snack. I would have chased him around Kmart.
Well, it might have been a different outcome. Take a quick break, come back. When we do come back, the state of Texas versus Jesus Christ.
Is that the way it really is?
Yes, that's straight ahead on the ride home. Does it seem like increasingly there is the 48 states, and then there's Florida and Texas?
I think that's the way Florida and Texas like it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, right? But it does seem like there's a disparate world out there that they choose not to be part of. Elizabeth Bruning is with us. She's a staff writer at The Atlantic. She's written for The Washington Post, The New York Times, was a staff writer at The New Republic, received her Master's of Philosophy and Christian Theology at the University of Cambridge. But she wrote a terrific piece, which she's here to talk to us about today at The Atlantic, called The State of Texas versus Jesus Christ. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Elizabeth, should we call you Elizabeth? Liz, what?
Liz is fine.
Okay, great. Liz, I will tell you that I'm a geek fan of yours before we begin. I think
Thank you so much.
I think you're a terrific writer, and I want to talk about baked goods before this segment is over. But first, I want to ask you about just religion writing in general. Before we talk about this specific case, I know you've written for a bunch of different outlets. Talk about how America's like discussing religion right now. Are you happy with how we're talking about faith-related things?
Well, I think it's always been sort of difficult in the United States to have a conversation about religion because, you know, we're a very, very religious country, and yet we also have these traditionally strong boundaries between church and state. So religion is something that means a lot to our citizenry, and at the same time, it's something that we sort of feel like has no role in public policy. But, you know, as the Texas case shows, it's hard to keep out of public policy. It just is such a big part of our lives. And so I think it's an area where coverage is difficult. There are lots of different religions in this country. They're all very different from one another. There's no one expert in all the religions. And so, you know, it's tense, I think, right now because politics in general are very tense.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the Texas case, Liz, there's an inmate, John Henry Ramirez, who was slated for execution by the state of Texas, and he wanted a pastor that he had since joined the church while he was incarcerated at the moment of execution to pray for him, and as the pastor's praying, to lay hands on him as the inmate is strapped down on the gurney. But the state of Texas said that's not going to happen. Can you go into this story and go deeper about the whys and whereofs of this case?
Yeah, so Texas has dealt with a series of these cases. The first one involved an inmate named Patrick Murphy. He was one of the Texas 7. He's not a beloved inmate. Texas 7 were a group of inmates who in 2000 broke out of a prison in South Texas and killed a police officer. That's actually what he was convicted of murder for. His original conviction was for sexual assault, and he was doing 50 years, but he was not on death row. It was after that prison break that he was put on death row. These folks were pretty universally reviled in Texas. I'm actually from Texas, so I remember quite a bit of this being on the news growing up. And Murphy asked to have a Buddhist spiritual advisor in the chamber with him at the time of execution. At the time he made that request, Texas only had Muslim and Christian chaplains on staff in the prison system, and those were the only people allowed in the execution chamber at the time of death, and that began a whole case. And since then, that went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you've got to either let everybody have a religious figure with them in the execution chamber or nobody, but it can't be some denominations and not others. I believe the justice who ruled on that was actually Brett Kavanaugh. And then there was another case, a gentleman named Ruben Gutierrez, who was on death row, who wanted a Catholic priest with him, but because they had banned all clergy, that also went to the Supreme Court. I interviewed Mr. Gutierrez last year and talked to him about that. And Texas has since reversed and said they'll allow clergy as long as they are vetted and pass a background check, but with some limitations. And now we come to Mr. Ramirez, who would like a Baptist pastor to pray over him and lay hands on him at the time of execution. Texas says no.
So the request on its face value, it doesn't seem too outrageous or odd. I mean, you would think that this is part of Christian tradition, right? That pastors and priests have prayed over and touched people for their dying breath. I mean, in the Catholic tradition, it's considered a sacrament. So what is the deal with the state of Texas? Why they would not allow this to happen?
You know, it's interesting. If you read the commentary from the lower court who sided with Texas and said that it was all right to deny Mr. Ramirez that request, they said, you know, it would just be unduly stressful and disorderly.
So they're trying to keep it
staff.
as clinical as possible, right, Liz?
Right. They don't want it to. They said in one of their statements in one of these court rulings, you know, this is an emotionally charged and irrevocable procedure. Yes. And I know they can't mean emotionally charged for the inmate, because one of the funny things that keeps happening with the death penalty is there are these challenges under the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. The method of execution probably is very painful to be executed by lethal injection. And the courts keep saying, yes, it probably is, but we can't show any damages because we're trying to kill them, and we do. So what's the harm? Right. So if that's their position on physical pain, this cannot be their concern, emotional pain.
Right.
Therefore, they're talking about the prison staff. They don't want it to be emotionally difficult for the prison staff.
Interesting.
And the bottom line is that death is difficult. And
yes.
It's hard for every person who's involved in it. And trying to make it less so kind of denies what it is.
But at the same time, you would also say, well, these inmates, you know, they're victims. They were not given this process of gentleness as they exited the world. They died by violent hands. So we're just doing our job, you know, an eye for an eye in some way.
That's typically, you know, I have been a witness at an execution. That is what prison staff say at the time of execution. They represent it as a sort of process they have no control over. They say, you know, we didn't prosecute, sentence, or convict this person. We just are carrying out the orders of the state. That's our job.
Right.
I understand that. In a way, they remind me of soldiers in that this is the state making an unreasonable request of people in its employ, and they are suffering for it. So it is unfair to them. I agree.
Now
they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Now, am I right, Liz, that you wrote about this in the past?
Oh, yes. I've been writing about capital punishment for years.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember this when you said that you were witness to an execution. All of a sudden, I'm starting to remember the piece that you wrote about this. And as I remember, one of the takeaways that you wrote about was the fact that that the people who are involved in it, those who work for the state, are irrevocably changed. Whether it was their decision or not, this is just common sense, right? And you were observing that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have to find a way to, in the last round of executions, for example, last year, the last administration executed 13 inmates on federal death row after a 17-year hiatus. So that was, you know, in 6 months, 13 people were executed at Terre Haute. And it's just hard. You deal with, you know, in one case, the victim's family was a strong opponent of the execution of the killer. That was the first execution they carried out last year. That's difficult. They deal with protesters. A lot of those protesters are nuns, priests, clergy. These are not bad people who are being cruel to prison staff. They're trying to be persuasive and they're respectful. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to avoid the fact that what you're doing is you're tying someone down and poisoning them. Right. And you're doing it in a room with several windows so lots of people can watch.
Right. Now, I mean, of course, you're irrevocably changed. I mean, when I was reading this piece, this is a poor parallel, but I'll say it nonetheless. We put our dog down last week, and we, you know, went and had a vet come to the house and put a needle in the dog. And, you know, we're there touching the dog, crying with the dog. It's a very deeply emotional thing. And so you can imagine the high theater of, I don't know how many people, 10, 20, 30 people watching the process. At the same time, the condemned man wanting to be touched and to hear an audible prayer or prayers as he exits this earth. It doesn't seem like it's an untoward response.
No, I mean, another odd facet of executions is the victim's family is invited to watch, but the condemned person's family can also attend the execution. So oftentimes the mother, say, of the person who has just been killed will hear the victim's family clapping and cheering.
Oh my gosh!
In the next room over, and I always think to myself, there's nothing added here. I don't think this doesn't seem like justice. A mother watches her child killed in front of her and listens to people cheering, and the person who was murdered, of course, is still dead.
You're right.
Elizabeth Bruning is a staff writer at The Atlantic. She's written for The Washington Post and The New York Times. She was also a staff writer at The New Republic. We're talking to her about a piece she wrote for The Atlantic just today, a couple days ago, The State of Texas versus Jesus Christ. And that title kind of gets at the crux of, I guess, what we should talk about next, which is the fact that whether people recognize it or not, or choose to endorse it or not, Christianity and the person of Jesus really is at the heart of life and death. And so having a pastor there for someone who has been judged by the state is just, that's part of what it is. I mean, whether the person is guilty or innocent, Christianity tells us that we're all guilty and that we're all, we all suffer in life, and we all hope for peace and death. And this is the story of Christianity. So the state removing a pastor from that intimate moment is like denying the power of what the faith is.
Right, or ruling that the pastor can only pray silently or can't touch the individual, when in a lot of especially American Protestant traditions, sort of audible praying over and laying of hands on someone is a big part of the tradition. Although in Catholicism, the blessing of the sick and in death, that is a part of the rite as well.
Yes.
And so it's sort of remarkable to me that this very well-established aspect of Christianity is sort of a bridge too far for Texas prison staff, just because it's potentially upsetting and kind of disorderly in the eyes of the executioners.
Right. So, Liz, then John Henry Ramirez's claim in this case, his execution has been delayed. What's the update on this? This has been pushed down the road. The Supreme Court's going to take this up at some future date, yes?
Right. So the Supreme Court's next term is going to begin in October, and it will be heard at that point, Ramirez's case, and then what they decide will affect how Texas and then presumably all the other states that are still carrying out the death penalty, about half of them, will deal with clergy in the chamber.
Okay, so last question for you, Elizabeth. When we hear about the John Henry Ramirez case, what questions do you think we should ask ourselves about it?
Well, the question that the thing that I kept meditating on is, is there anyone who in their last moments deserves to be denied the opportunity to repent and to pray? The example to us, I think, are the thieves crucified with Jesus. In their last moments, they have the opportunity to be with God.
Right.
And if we are going to, which I think we should not, but if we are going to execute criminals in this country, then I think we should provide every opportunity for them to be as close as possible to God, because we have the power to kill. I don't think we should use it, but we should certainly not be trying to curtail their opportunities for salvation eternally.
I'm into that. Liz, that's well said. Thanks so much for being with us, and certainly thank you for the power of your writing to reach an audience who may not necessarily consider these questions that we've talked about today. Really good job.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Our pleasure.
Also, keep baking.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Elizabeth Bruning, the piece in the Atlantic is called "The State of Texas versus Jesus Christ."
In the past, we have perhaps exchanged tense words about grilled cheese.
You and I. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a low bar, isn't it? When you're exchanging tense words about a grilled cheese sandwich.
It tells you that we're concerned about the important things.
Right. It's
here
a
in the
well-worn
Red Dot.
relationship if you get to that level,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly. No, that's a good point. I appreciate that. So I'm going to take advantage of
great.
the depth of our friendship
And come back
by
into it
bringing it
again.
up again. Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we
Because I thought of you when I was looking at the Washington Post this morning, an article on how to make a better grilled cheese.
Okay.
And I thought, we're at a stable enough place.
Yeah.
We've now invited Christy into our friendship. And we're going to talk about grilled cheese today, and I want us to be respectful.
Right. And I would say that this is the beginning. Wouldn't you say this is the beginning of grilled cheese season?
I think you're right. Yeah, because you don't want a grilled cheese in July.
Not particularly.
No, that's a little. It's too much.
Would you do some grilled cheese and some tomato soup? Isn't that
yes,
nice?
I
That's a
would.
good combo. Huh?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. Wait, Christy, are you a fan?
All day, every day.
Hey, there you go. Bring
We
it,
should
lady.
have asked her that at the interview.
Yeah, we should. Right.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness God knew that
Right.
what we were going to leave out.
She could have
He
said,
supplied our needs anyway.
I prefer a hot pocket. And then,
In today's Washington Post,
Yeah.
the author of the piece, who's not named, or perhaps it just didn't print out appropriately. I can't quite say. It's the Washington Post, okay?
either way.
The writer says there's usually at least one thing you can do to help transform a good sandwich into a great one. I'm not necessarily talking about overhauling your strategy. Instead, just a couple tips for taking it to the next level. Number one,
All right. Tips.
use shredded cheese. Have you ever tried that?
I have.
Oh, what do you think?
I'm not a fan.
Okay, I've never tried that.
It makes it a little too messy.
What, does it make it globular kind
Yeah.
of?
Yep.
I don't want that.
Plus, I would believe that shredded cheese, to me at least, is the cheaper cheese.
Yeah, well, what about if you shred your cheese, though? You get it in a block and then you shred it.
I mean, I'm not going to do.
That's too much work.
I think so.
I always shred my cheese.
What?
It's so much better. It tastes so much better.
What?
Because it doesn't. They put coating on it to keep it from sticking together, and the cheese tastes like garbage.
She's so bougie.
Yeah.
Listen,
Bougie.
It's a $2.99 cheese grater. It's not like.
Yeah, but then you got to clean the inside
It's
and
not
the
that bad.
outside. You got to use the scrunch.
I'm just telling you should do it anyway. But I don't do that with grilled cheese anyway. Okay.
goodness.
Upgrade your fat.
What?
Upgrade your fat. Don't miss an opportunity to add more flavor to your grilled cheese, okay? After spending years using neutral oils, I've mostly switched to other options I find more exciting, says the writer.
Oils
The two I flip-flop on are salted butter and mayonnaise. Both give my sandwiches more flavor, color, and crispness than something like canola oil.
No, wait.
Your feelings.
100%. I've never even considered using canola.
I think that's a horrible
Right?
idea to use canola
You
oil.
use butter on your
Yeah,
grilled cheese.
I use butter. Do you?
I use butter.
Yeah, of
me too.
course. Who
Yeah.
does?
Okay, do you put butter in your skillet or do
No.
you just butter the bread?
The bread.
Yeah. Christy?
Just butter the bread.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to put butter in the skillet.
Where are those people
Skillet's
from?
just hot,
No.
right? Have you ever tried mayonnaise?
Never.
That sounds disgusting.
I have heard good things about it.
Oh, I can't do it.
Wait a second.
I have.
Now, 1 minute you're getting the coaster stains off your
That works.
your
That was
table,
yesterday.
right? And now and then you're going to wash
Put
your
this on
hair
that.
and then make a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
It's like mayonnaise is like the
Mayonnaise
catch-all
is
for
wonderful.
everything.
I also, for the last 3 Thanksgivings, have put covered my Thanksgiving turkey with mayonnaise.
Yeah, I get that as well.
Okay.
This segment brought to you by
Also, it says for an even more over-the-top option, grab your jar of rendered bacon fat and use that.
Oh, come on.
I've
Really?
heard that.
I bet that's.
I
how
bet
could that
that's
be-
delicious.
That'd be
And
fabulous.
then pick up an ice pick and stick it in your heart. It's about the same thing.
Griddle the inside of the bread first. This tip goes hand in hand with using shredded cheese, the writer says, by giving the sides of the bread that will eventually be in the interior of the sandwich an initial toast in the skillet. You can kind of jumpstart the cheese melting process with the residual heat.
That's too much. Can we just make a grilled cheese sandwich, please?
Okay, so to me, the sogginess is part of the charm.
No, I like a crisp one.
But on the inside,
Oh,
I don't,
yeah,
I
of
don't think
course.
I need the inside bread of the bread to be crispy.
No.
Okay. Make a heat dome for the sandwich. Now, I do this,
Yeah.
right? You put a lid over the sandwich so it keeps the heat in
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
then melts your cheese.
That's fine.
I don't feel like that's really kicking it up. I feel like that isn't that like
Pretty basic. What, they're saying butter and a heat dome. I mean, I can do both those things.
Add crunch on the outside.
Yep.
Sometimes my favorite part of a grilled cheese is when some of the cheese accidentally falls out and crisps up on the outside of the bread, which is
I agree,
delicious.
yeah.
Well, you can be much more intentional by adding shredded or sliced cheese to the skillet first before placing the bread on it.
Mm.
You will get a shattering cheese crisp on the outside of the sandwich.
I'm all for that. Very, very nice.
All for it. That
I
sounds
never
fun.
thought about it.
That's good.
Okay. Use up your condiments. Swiping one of your favorite condiments across your bread is one of the easiest ways to add instant pop. Perhaps harissa? What is that?
I don't know what that is.
What's harissa? Chili crisp, relish, sriracha,
That sounds good.
mustard. Someone here likes hot honey. Someone here likes pepper jelly. or mayo on the inside,
Jeez,
so
here's
it
the
doesn't
mayo
disappear.
again. Right,
What do you think? Now,
I'm fine.
I don't want mustard anywhere near my.
I'm
grilled
doing
cheese.
mustard on mine. Here's what I'm doing. I told this before. Grilled cheese
This is
with
horrible.
bacon, tomato, and mustard.
Where are you putting the mustard
Inside.
before you cook it?
No.
That's
After the
wrong.
fact.
See, that's how we got in the fight the
Takes
first
1
time.
second.
When
Boom.
you have your grilled cheese done and it's all melty delicious, you don't take it apart.
Quickly.
No.
1 second.
It's not
make
1
it work.
second. It's like 30 seconds, and by then you've chilled the inside and you've lost the goop.
Chilled it. No.
Christy,
what are you
your
putting
comment?
I'm not putting mayo. You can't open it. That's just like a no-no. And mayo, come on.
un-American.
Come on.
on? No mayo.
What
not
about
mayo.
mustard? Would you
Mustard.
No, mustard? No, I won't do that either.
Okay,
That's
no.
weird.
Bacon?
Bacon and tomato all day.
Yeah, there you
but
go.
if it's inside from the start, you're not
Yes.
putting it on
All
after
right,
it's already
if I
cooked.
have to, fine. All right.
Okay, what about hot honey? Have you ever tried hot
No,
honey?
I'd be happy to have that.
Oh,
though.
I had a pizza with hot honey.
Yeah.
Pepperoni pizza with hot honey. Like changed
I
my
never
whole
heard-
outlook.
What's hot honey?
It's honey heated up.
Right. Maybe it's hot mayonnaise. I'd go for that. All right. Take a quick break. Come back. What are we talking
What
about?
about that segment?
Mindful and your phone, and grilled cheese here on the ride home. How often do you impulsively just reach for your phone?
Like in what amount of time?
It's like a huge magnet that draws your hand towards your pocket or where you're sitting in a chair or a couch, as if spending 40 seconds with your own thoughts is impossible. It's a quote from Bill Duane, who's a Google executive who meditates. He says this.
He's a Google executive who's in charge of getting us to keep looking at our
Yes,
phones.
well, he says this. If you are drawn to your phone, ask yourself, am I checking the phone for information I need to make a connection out of boredom, to escape the present moment? If you don't really need to check your phone, then just leave it alone. Notice the urge to get online arise and eventually subside. So now there are people, right, in this world that we live in now who have become mindfulness experts on helping you tamp down your fear and anxiety of this age that we live in and to help us exorcise the phone from our daily life. I think it's really necessary.
Mm-hmm.
How many times? My phone, I don't care. I mean, this is just my life. My phone is probably never more, no exaggeration, than 6 inches from me. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, day and night, 24/7. Which is, if you would have told me this 20 years ago, I'd have thought, what are you talking
Right,
about?
that's ridiculous.
It's a sickness. But there it is. And I think that I'm probably in the majority here, that most people probably follow along. Would you agree?
I'm sorry to say, I would absolutely agree because I'm the same way.
All right, Christy.
I'm the same way.
Dang it.
So it spans time and generations, does it not?
Yep.
The phone has become such a ubiquitous part. It's our appendage, right?
Yep, it is.
Will they look at us 100 years from now and go, what a bunch of clucks? What were they thinking about? What will happen when the phone somehow becomes something other than what it is? Because eventually it probably will be, right? I mean, they've been saying, remember the Google glasses, right? The phone will be part of our
Right.
this.
It's already in a non-physical sense. That's what it is. We see life through this. So if the Google Glass were to become a thing, then it would just be a physical manifestation of what's already happened.
Right.
Okay, you want to hear something weird? And I'm not a theologian, and I'm not saying that I believe this, but it's something that I have wondered. The very first chapter of Revelation, where it says, we'll see Jesus coming on the clouds, and every eye will see him. I started to wonder if that means that it'll be on our phones.
The cloud.
Mm-hmm.
On
I
the
do.
phone.
I don't mean him coming on the clouds as like iCloud. I'm not saying
Well,
that.
that's kind of the
but
same
I'm just
thing.
saying the every eye will see him because I don't. John is obviously, that was a vision that was given to him of things that would happen. So there were things that were outside of his own time.
Right.
And so he was trying to put into words things that his culture had not yet seen. So I'm just wondering. I've often thought, and I started to think about that when I was in the Far East a year and a half ago. I couldn't believe I was in Indonesia. I was on the top of a mountain. It took almost a 90-minute drive out of the city to get to this place. It was remote. And when I got up there, the community was so welcoming, and I was shocked to see that every person had a phone.
And they were on their phones.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know if these people have enough to eat, and they'll have a phone. So it just made me think this is like way more.
Central.
Yeah.
I was at the beach last week. I mean, I was literally in paradise, it felt like. And the few people that I saw were walking down the beach barefoot with their bathing suits on, with their heads down, looking at the phone as they were walking. So I don't know. I mean, but that point that you just made about Revelation. So what, when you get like, you ever get like an Amber Alert on your phone?
sure.
And the phone makes a crazy
Yeah.
noise and you reach and you look and you go.
And if you're at home with your family,
Right,
everybody
everybody hears
gets
it.
it.
So, I mean, I don't say that that's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, anything can happen here, right? So then will it be people get ready,
I don't know.
right? I mean,
I don't know. It's just until these came into our world, none of us could have imagined the change that they would bring.
all right, now, Christy's, there you are, 27 years old. You've lived in a world where there has never been, right? You've always had this. Now,
How old were you when you got a phone?
7th grade.
Okay. Was that a thing in your family? Was that like a decision that everybody made? Was it just that's what happens when you're the youngest, right?
Yeah, I'm the youngest. I was playing sports and I got left at school one day. So it was like decided that I should probably get a cell phone. Yeah.
Right. For safety purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I can remember when there wasn't a phone.
Yeah.
Right. And our
Although
excitement.
I have a hard time remembering what it was like.
But don't
I
you
remember
remember
that
your first phone?
Yes.
Like your first
Yes.
real phone.
I do remember my first real phone, but I don't remember what my life was like before it.
Right. I have my first like phone, which was like this blue little Nokia.
Mine was red. Yep.
And I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. I got a phone. But then you make a leap forward to your first iPhone, which was the major
your
game
first
changer.
smartphone was like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. The smartphone changed everything. And it's only been 2 decades. I don't know. I just think it's something.
It's something to continue to remind ourselves of, yeah, right?
Would it be, so the phone is 6 inches from me, and reflectively, you're watching something on television and you wonder about something. So we live in an age where almost every question can be answered. Almost. Right?
I'm watching Clarkson's Farm last night with my husband.
Yeah.
And it's harvest. And he's harvesting the rapeseed. And I said to Eric,
What's a rapeseed?
what's rapeseed? And he was like, I don't know.
Pick it up. There it is.
Check it out. Get the definition. Oh, okay. Then go back to watch the show.
Right.
Or get lost in your phone and forget about the show. We did go back and watch the show, but that's an ancillary problem, right? Is whenever you go to look something up, then you go down a rabbit hole and it's 90 minutes later.
So before the phone, people were always preoccupied with other things, but now because it's so immediate and so in front of us, the English have something like this. Will there be the English have the ministry of loneliness? Will we evolve into an age of the ministry of mindfulness, and that we have to be brought back to our senses in a way to stay away from the fantasy of the ethereal of the phone life as opposed to the reality of who we are? Or will something happen? You think about massive hacking or a nuclear explosion where all of a sudden we don't have access to
solar
our
flare.
phone, right? Something like that, where we're all knocked off our phones and we're forced to, like we used to, engage with each other face to face as a community. How weird will that be?
You and I are on the road.
Oh,
Cormac McCarthy's the road.
the road. Right.
You and I
That's
are
it.
walk-
All right.
You and I are walking along.
I don't know. I don't have an answer to this, and to be honest, I don't even know what the question is. But I just know that there is a sickness, an addiction amongst us that separates us from ourselves first, from those that we love, and then ultimately from God, because we're too busy looking up rapeseed
yeah, right.
or
Right.
what's a Dairy
Okay,
Queen.
so I have to put in a plug though for Andy Crouch's book, that little orange book that I dislike so much. And you know why I dislike it?
Why?
Because it's
the
so
truth.
convicting and
Right.
it's truthful. His new one's The TechWise Family.
Mm-hmm.
What's it?
I don't know. Look it up.
It's orange.
Yeah.
It's Andy Crouch's book, and it's the one that makes the most sense.
Anyway, it's just an indictment of ourselves.
Oh,
and we're happy to share that with
I
you.
can't believe you brought that up. Now I feel terrible.
Have a grilled cheese or some mayonnaise. When's the last time you thought about the tooth fairy?
Well, probably the last time my child lost a tooth.
Right.
So that's probably a decade ago.
So I'm looking online.
Maybe not that much. Less than a decade.
The average gift from the tooth fairy dropped to $2.10 last year,
It dropped. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
down 42 cents from the average gift was $2.50.
$2.50 for a tooth?
Yeah. Who leaves $2.50? First of all, who's leaving spare change under your kid's pillow? Unless it's just a quarter, because that's what we would get,
I would-
a dime or a quarter.
You mean that when you were a kid, you would
Yeah.
get that?
Right.
What about when your kids were?
Oh, a quarter.
I think I gave him a quarter. I don't
Yeah.
think there was any adjustment for inflation.
No. I think I got a
Christy?
quarter.
I got like $5.
$5.
I swear, I got like a
Five.
couple bucks. Yeah.
That is bougie.
Really? That is.
That's a bougie fairy.
So in this piece I'm seeing, someone said my kid came home and said that his buddy got $20 per tooth.
I don't think I got that much.
20
Wait a
bucks.
minute. Wait, we're like out of the mainstream.
Yeah. The most common amount left under the pillow by the tooth fairy is $1. Most children
Because
find
that's
more
easy.
money.
Because you reached into your wallet and you got $1.
Yeah. Most children find more money under the pillow for their first lost baby tooth. 35% of people who were surveyed allow their children 3 or 4 sugary drinks a day. Dentists say that's too much. So that you're engaging the tooth fairy.
Wait, what is it? Wait, go back to the sugary drinks?
Yeah.
What's
they're-
that?
Just in the survey, they took this survey about, what's the tooth fairy like from the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
35% of those surveyed allow their children 3 to 4 sugary drinks a day.
First of all, that's a lot. Second of all, what does that have to do with the tooth fairy?
Because you get a cavity, the tooth falls out,
Well, you
that
don't
whole
get
thing.
your tooth doesn't fall because you have a cavity.
Same kind of thing, though. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's.
I mean,
I don't think it's the same thing.
Didn't you, wasn't it the worst when you were a little kid and your tooth got loose and
Yeah.
you thought, oh no. And then you start twisting
Oh no!
it.
You know what?
And then, oh
no, it's one of my skills in life. You
pulling
know
the
what?
tooth out.
You just
Yeah.
pull that sucker out.
Gee.
Yep. I'm your friend.
Then you get that little hole.
You got a loose tooth, you come see me.
Isn't that cool? That little hole. You go, what goes on there? Right?
Yeah. Christy doesn't like that. You're lucky I didn't know you when you were
No,
little.
that, that grosses me out.
Yeah.
What, so you just let it hang there?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
You just let it
You
hang
don't.
there and just like
That-
suffer
that's
it.
torture.
No, I'm
'Cause then
sure
you-
my dad pulled it out for me.
Because then you eat something and it's kind of like flapping around. It's
the worst.
The worst. Have a grilled cheese and it'll come out in the grilled cheese. Right?
That actually would work pretty well.
Christy, look at that.
That's a good idea. Or how about this? How about a Rice Krispie treat?
Oh, there you go.
I'm going to remember all this for my future kids.
Yes, please.
Or an apple.
When you were away, John, we talked about a new fitness craze, which is people are eating prior to their workout Rice Krispie treats.
Oh, that's nice.
And so
That sounds good.
Christy and I both agreed that's just a bad idea.
Yeah. Hey, don't give your kid $5.
No, and don't eat
Okay.
Rice Krispie treats before you work out.
A quarter will suffice. $1 if you're like feeling pretty happy about things. But geez, the Tooth Fairy coming soon to a pillow near you. My pillow. Hey, thanks for being with us here for the Thursday edition of The Ride Home. You know, when you invite a handyman into your house, a contractor.
Yes.
Whether it's a plumber or an electrician, right? I mean, they become in some ways, if they're sticking around for a few hours or even a day or weeks maybe sometimes or months, part of the fabric of the house, right? They just, their presence is known. There's someone else in the house. There's a story I saw about a guy, his name is Kev Crane, who lives in the UK, and he's a 49-year-old plumber, and he always sings along on the job. He brings his radio with him, so while he's working, you know, in the bathroom or whatnot, he's, you know, doing his work, and he's just belting out a tune that goes on the radio. So there he is a few months back, and he's in someone's house. And it just so happened the guy's house he was in was a record producer who owned his own record label. Now, Kev Crane didn't know that. He was belting out the Talking Heads' Burning Down the House. And so this guy who owns the record company thought to himself, that's a fully formed voice. So the guy went into the plumber's, into the bathroom and started talking to the plumber. And he said, hey, man, I like what I hear. What's the story? So they went back and forth and back and forth. And so this guy, Kev Crane, who had worked as an upholsterer before, whenever he was in his early 20s, was part of a band, but he had to leave that aside. But during the pandemic, for like a lot of people not able to work, he went back into his computer and set up a little home recording studio. So Kev Crane, the plumber, just happened to have 8 tracks of music, of songs that he was working on. And so he brought these 8 tracks of these songs to this guy whose bathroom he was working on. And before you know it, he was signed to a record deal, an independent label. And now the thing is kind of taken off. I mean, you can't make something up like that.
That's what Kev Crane said. He said, you never, ever think something like this is going to happen to you. And he said, I knew, this is an article in today's Washington Post. He said, it's not that I didn't know he was a record producer. I just never, ever imagined he'd be interested in what I was doing or in me singing.
I mean, people's dreams happen in some crazy ways.
Right. And you just think, if you don't believe in God and that there is a sovereign hand that guides your life, I don't know. You just feel like you were in a pinball game.
Right. Or that's a happy accident. Or
that's an unhappy accident, depending on what you're talking about.
Right. Or what a coincidence. But there it is. I mean, again, you see God working in oddly mysterious ways. And so Kev Crane, the singing plumber, I'm sure he's on Spotify or any place where you can stream. You can check him out, right?
So he's done 3 bathrooms.
Yeah.
Right? For Mr. Connolly, who's the record producer. And Mr. Connolly said, well, if all else fails, he's still a great plumber. The bathrooms look fantastic.
That's funny stuff.
That really is.
Yep.
That's an article by Sidney Page in the Washington Post.
All right. So what's it like for you when you have somebody in your house, a contractor?
Well, I'm about to find out.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, wait, you're going to go. No, look, as long as I've known you, one of the things you've always talked about was I come to your house and, you know, we gather with friends and you go, this kitchen of mine is so tiny, I'm so over it. So you've been thinking about this for a long, long time. And now soon, and very soon, contractors are going to come into your house and they're going to knock down some walls. They're going to knock down your dining room wall.
Yep.
And you're going to flip-flop what was once the dining room will now be the kitchen.
Right.
That's scary.
It is scary. It's going to be crazy town.
How long is it going to last?
3 months.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And what's going to be in where the kitchen is now?
So the kitchen, I have a very, as you already expressed,
It is
a
small.
very small kitchen.
Tiny.
And it's a small footprint. And there's also just I have like 3 foot of counter space and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the total thing.
So you're using the stove to work
Yeah,
off
you use
of,
the
right?
stove.
Yeah.
I got one of those flat top stoves, you know, electric top, so you kind of have another counter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that the wall's going to disappear, and so what's currently the kitchen and the dining room is together going to become the kitchen.
Okay.
So I'm not going to have a dining room anymore.
Right. So you're going to have like a breakfast nook or something like that?
There's not really enough room for that,
Okay.
but there's going to be a nice long run of counter.
But no dining room.
No dining room.
Where are you going to eat?
So what's now my family room, like my hangout room.
Okay.
a portion of that, which has a bathroom in it now, which is going to go away, is going to become a dining room.
So that's why
Yeah. So
guys
it'll be
are going to be there for several months.
yeah, it's going to take a long time.
So I would imagine, knowing you, because you're loquacious, that you're going to get to know these guys pretty darn good.
I would think so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah. Scott, he's the guy who's in charge.
When's it happen?
It starts the 19th of October.
All right. Well, maybe there'll be some singing going on.
Or maybe not.
You're right.
We could offer him. I really don't have anything to offer him. I was going to say this guy offered the plumber a record contract. I don't have anything to offer Scott.
So while you're downstairs is being totally torn up, where are you living?
Only on the second and third floor, with no kitchen.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just Eric and I and the cats.
So we talked about this. So you were talking about getting like a George Foreman grill.
Right. I did get an air fryer.
Okay.
But I got a small one, and after Christy told me maybe I'm
Yeah,
like
bigger
regretting
one.
the fact that I didn't get a bigger one because hers is a pressure cooker.
Yeah, it's a pressure cooker and an air fryer in one.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I got the cheap one that was on sale on Amazon.
Right. So wait, no. So then that means Thanksgiving's out and
Right.
Christmas.
Well,
That's a great excuse.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's definitely out. They're hoping that the actual kitchen will be done, like we could use it at Christmas, but it's not going to be like there's probably going to be stuff hanging from the ceiling. It's not going to be like we want to have people over, but at least we'd have a sink and a refrigerator to use.
Right.
Which is more than what we're going to have.
Okay. So you see this on the the home renovation shows. Will you yourself that first day they arrive? Are you picking up a sledgehammer?
No, they don't want me to do that.
They don't.
They're not interested in our involvement.
This is not Property Brothers.
I mean, there's some thrill of that, right? Of taking a hammer to
And
your
just
house
ruining
and
my
knowing that
kitchen
someone's
that
going to
Disliked
cover your
all this time.
mistakes.
Yeah, there is no offer of, gee, Kathy, how about you help us in demo?
I think it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you want to like paint something on the
I
wall?
think there's
or-
a moment when you're a professional where you'd like the amateurs to get out of the
Yeah,
way.
that's right. I guess that's true. I mean, because you're watching Property Brothers or whatnot, and we're all attuned to that. The cheap thrill of destroying your abode.
Listen, we've watched it a lot and it's enjoyable.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you're not going to take it up.
However, it's not going to take 26 minutes to complete like it
Right,
does on
for
Property
$3,000.
Brothers. Listen, and just in case any of you are wondering, and I've said this before on the air, but I just need to say it again. When they talk about how much things cost,
where? On the
that
property
does not,
shows?
yeah, on any of those HGTV shows, they're not labor's free.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it, right? So they're talking materials only. So take whatever number they're talking about and double it
Oh, easily double it.
or more, but
I bet.
definitely double it because that's what the project would cost.
All right. Well, we look forward to the updates. October 19th is the red letter day.
Right.
Is that a Monday?
I don't know when it is.
All right. I'll stay tuned for
It's
those
going to be
updates.
ugly, you guys. Hopefully, at the end, it'll be beautiful, but there's going to be a lot of bad times.
Right.
What about if I sleep here in the studio?
A lot of bad times. No, what you'll be doing is a lot of Grubhub, a lot of takeout.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
You may gain a few pounds during the remodel.
I don't think we need to be talking
Just
about
saying.
that.
I'm just saying. Take a quick break. Tulfa Harris is going to be with us next. She is one of Pittsburgh Business Times 30 Under 30, a very interesting project she's working on. But we want to hear her story and her life here in the city of Pittsburgh. Tulfa Harris next here on The Ride Home. Life is cool. It's big. A lot of people grab life and they squeeze every ounce of it. Talfa Harris is with us. She is one of those people. She is the Pittsburgh Business Times 30 Under 30. Also, she's an author, an entrepreneur, founder of Sustainable, here to join us today to talk about any number of things. Hey, Talfa, how you doing?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our
Doing
pleasure.
Good.
You make a lot out of the same 24 hours of the day that I have.
That wasn't the first time I heard that.
I bet that's true. Okay, so let's go back a little. I don't want to go to the very beginning, but I know you grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. I want to hear first. I was going to ask you about how you ended up in Pittsburgh, but that's a little further down the path. I read an article about you that talked about this gap year that you did, which kind of, I don't know, helped you to flesh out the entrepreneurship that was kind of always in you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So right before I went to college at UNC, I won the Global Gap Year Award. And it is a scholarship where they send about 7 students, like anywhere in the world, for 2 semesters.
Do you get to
volunteer
pick?
for 6 months? Yeah, we got to pick. We spun the globe, and wherever our finger landed is where we went.
No
That's so
way.
cool.
Okay, so where did you go?
I went to Ecuador, and I worked in the Amazon rainforest and the jungle.
Whoa.
I got chased down by monkeys after 6 weeks, and I was like, it's time to go.
This experiment's over.
First, yeah, it was over. It was over at that point. So the first country that accepted me was Jamaica, and that's where I spent the rest of my gap year.
Fabulous. So go back even further than Talfa. Talk about your mom and dad. I mean, what was that like? What were they talking to you like as you were being raised?
Yeah, so both of my parents are scientists. So literally my mother read me chemistry books in the womb, and they raised me in the books. My dad worked at Disney World, so he really instilled in me that there is no limit. So it was a bunch of creativity, entrepreneurship, and science minded from the beginning throughout our house.
All right, and you knew even when you were a little kid that you wanted to invent things or make stuff happen.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
what shape did that take in the mind of an 8-year-old?
Well, it was what I could get my hands on. So lemonade came out. I mean,
Sure.
I didn't invent lemonade, of course, but it was the first thing that I could manipulate the recipe and try to sell. And I know one summer I went to an inventors camp and we built robotics, cars and things like that. And from there, it just took the shape of creating things and finding loopholes that I could fix or help solve problems, really.
Interesting. So then how do you find yourself in Pittsburgh? What's the entrance here like?
I got accepted into a program called Venture for America, and it takes select entrepreneurs around the U.S. and places them in cities that are on the edge of entrepreneurship. And my placement was here in Pittsburgh as an entrepreneurship hub manager at a local CDFI.
Interesting.
Okay, what's a CDFI?
Bridgeway.
Got it.
And it's a community development financial institution.
Okay.
So we give loans and small business development assistance throughout Pittsburgh and Western PA.
That's Talfa Harris. She's one of Pittsburgh Business Times 30 Under 30. She's an author, an entrepreneur, founder of Sustainable, which let's talk about that next. Sustainable, talk about the organization. And first off, where'd you get the idea?
So, I mean, I live within and breathe entrepreneurship. I work with small business owners throughout my career. I've mentored them. And I found that sometimes we all know our trade, but we all don't know how to manage that into a business. And so it was built, I know it's like you said, it's 24 hours in a day. So Sustainable is a platform where people can run their ideas, their business model through an online assessment and get instant feedback and recommendations and scores on how viable it is, how economically sustainable it will be, and recommendations on how they can improve or implement their business model.
Whoa.
So the idea kind of came out of helping business owners build better businesses faster.
Right. And so what's that like? You're drilling down into people. Are you finding people or are they coming to you? How does that exchange happen?
They're coming to me. It's an online platform, so they can log on, take the assessment, and they'll get instant recommendations. So it's automated and it's completely hands off.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. And did you develop the software for it?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot. Okay, Talfa, talk about what you feel like. What can the entrepreneur bring? There's so many. There's a lot of criticism right now of people who are in business, especially once you start to bring in a lot of cash. Is that once you start to have an income of a high level, all of a sudden you're the bad guy. You're the man that we all need to, despise, or we need to, tax extra, or we need to say, well, the man should handle that. The man, I'm using that in air quotes for those of you listening on the radio. So what do we need to know, those of us who aren't entrepreneurs, about what entrepreneurs bring to culture?
Complete innovation. Entrepreneurship, I think, is all about finding a problem and solving it. And there's, of course, money that comes with fixing people's problems, but it's also the small business owner, I think, owning a corner shop, just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it can contribute to the economy, no matter if they're making less than 100K in revenue or more. I think that if great entrepreneurs put their team first and make sure that in terms of their livelihoods, they're set and ready to go. And that's what will drive a business forward in terms of the entrepreneur's work culture that they're establishing, but also the culture around them and the ecosystem that they exist in their physical space.
Excellent. I mean, it feels good to thrive, doesn't it? No matter what your business is, no matter what you're doing throughout the day, if you feel good about what you're doing, and of course for you, Talfa, if you're helping those people thrive, that's a win-win for everybody. It must feel great.
Yes, I love it. I love the economic development. My whole mission and goal is to create jobs and create opportunities. So that's why I'm in it.
That's fabulous. Let's talk now about your recent project. Now, you're an author as well. And, our friend Chris Buddha, he said, hey, you should talk to Talfa. She's an author, and she's got this Bible series for kids. Tell us about this.
Yeah. First, thanks to Chris. Chris is great. So my way of giving back is through ministry. So I have a business called Ancient Path Adventures, and it's all about biblical education. And through it, we create board games, card games. We just released a mobile app, and now this book series, cool. All focused around biblical education for children and also family, adults as well. So this, I have a 1-year-old now. I can't say it anymore. I just had a baby. I have a 1-year-old. And I wanted to explain the Bible to her in very simple and easy terms, basically. But I know she wasn't going to read the KJV Bible with me. I made a book for her, and I decided to share it and publish it with others.
Wait, no, that's so. It's something to say. I made a book for her, but I mean, there's a lot that goes into making a book, right? I mean,
And there are a lot of bad kids books. A lot of bad books written for adults, but there are also a lot of bad kids books.
Yeah. So what's that journey like? You say, I'm going to make a book. How does that even start?
Is definitely a journey. She actually chose pictures, so I put pictures on the screen to see what would attract her, and she would point them out. That's she cool. loves animals, and so a lot of the books is really vivid, literally, I guess, formatted by a 1-year-old on the illustrations. And the words, the whole concept comes straight from scripture. So I can't take credit for writing the Bible, but I tried to rewrite it as possible so that a 1-year-old can understand in simple and easy words, as well as abiding by things like the index of the common languages that children should know and things like that. So it does follow the format of biblical text, but it is simple enough for a baby to understand.
So it's the Baby's Bible series. It's a starter for children ages 0 and up to understand biblical stories and values in the format of a board book with good illustrations to bring the Bible to life and stimulate the imagination, breaking down each chapter. They look super cute. I see 3 here. In the beginning, man and woman, and the first sin, which I don't know if the first sin has been tackled in a board book before now.
No, it's a hard feat.
Yeah. So your daughter's sort of the beta tester, right? And now you've got a Kickstarter campaign. The hope is to put this on on a mainstream platform, yeah?
Yes, would love to run a first print with it. And you were even thinking about subscription levels. So you'd get like one board book a month and walk through the Bible with your baby, basically.
That's cool.
Isn't that fun? And you're doing it at the perfect time, because when you're with a 1-year-old, you can kind of get in the head of a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
But if you wait 5 years, you're not going to be in that space anymore. You know what I mean? So it's good to do it now.
Yeah, I'm definitely along for the journey with her.
Fabulous.
Good.
Okay,
That's
so
awesome.
people are listening right now, watching, and they want to be part of the Kickstarter, Talfa. What should people do?
You can go to our website, ancientpathadventures.com. That's path, P-A-T-H,
Very nice.
adventures with an S. And there's a pop-up that'll take you to the Kickstarter link.
Excellent.
Okay, terrific. Well, Talfa, it's been a real pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, 30 under 30. That's a very cool thing. Keep on keeping on there, right?
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Terrific.
Talfa Harris,
yeah.
Entrepreneur. It's just really cool to see
She's
somebody
an author.
grab something.
She's a small business owner.
Very
She does
nice.
it all.
We'll take a quick break, come back. We've got much more ahead. It's The Ride Home with John and Kathy. We're Pittsburgh's Christian Talk here on Word FM.
make sense.
Does what make sense?
The electric toothbrush or the battery-powered toothbrush.
It's changed my life. The
Okay.
battery-powered toothbrush, I'm in love with. I mean, I went on vacation and took it with me. It's everything. It's 2 minutes.
It's everything.
It's everything. It's 2 minutes of focused, high-energy activity on your mouth and gums that your hand and your sort of wandering, kind of half-hearted effort to brush effectively will never achieve. I love it so much. My Quip, right? That's my brand. And I turned you onto it. I love it. I mean, highly recommended. And I'm not even a dentist. I'm telling you, it's changed my life. Does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Preach it. Preach
Listen, what he said and more.
Yeah.
I thought you were nuts.
No.
You talked to me about that for so long. I was like, that does not make sense. I've brushed my teeth my whole stinking life.
Nope.
I think I can continue on with the round motion with my. I used the Quip one time.
Oh.
I was like,
it.
sign me up.
Yeah.
You feel like you've never brushed your teeth before.
Exactly.
You've been bad at it your whole life.
Right. And at 30-second intervals, there's a little twist.
So you move on.
Yeah. So now your mouth is in quarters, right?
Yeah. Quadrants.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, your mouth just feels like it's fresh and alive and clean and all is right and well with the world.
I mean,
And
it sounds like a commercial spot, but I'm just saying.
it's true. But
It makes sense.
it surely does. All right. Does this make sense? Sprinkles.
Like
Sprinkles.
Jimmy's?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the sprinkle or the Jimmy is kind of like a condiment for donuts or ice cream. And I don't need them. They just get in the way. They slow me down. They get on me. They make a mess. I don't want a sprinkle or a Jimmy. Just keep it clean and move on. Does that make sense?
I can't believe this, but Jimmy's do not make sense.
Bingo.
I can't believe we're agreeing.
Exactly.
Look,
Thank you.
Look, what do they provide?
Nothing.
It's like texture, but not the good kind.
No. And it's like a color explosion, but more, it's just kind of like lint.
Or
it just gets in the way.
No, and it's just sometimes they get stuck in your teeth, and that's unpleasant.
No. Yeah. People, you get your ice cream. You want some sprinkles?
No, I don't want any
I don't want
sprinkles. I
sprinkles.
just ordered ice cream. What do I want sprinkles for?
Oh, for the first time there, Christy.
now Christy wants to
she's
play.
complaining
Yeah.
loudly as though we're out of step.
Yeah.
What does it make sense to you, Christy?
Yes.
What?
Gosh, she's wrong.
Isn't life just a series of transitions,
Yeah.
right? It's just how it is. Right?
My sister told me when I was a kid, she said, every good, she said it when I was a kid, but then she reiterated it when I had my first child. She said, this is what there is to remember about raising kids, is that every bad stage is followed by a good stage. And every good stage is followed by a bad stage.
Bummer. That's how it is.
And then every bad stage is followed by a good stage.
Doug Birch is back with us. Doug is co-pastor of Evergreen Foursquare Church in Auburn, Washington, the host and producer of the Fairly Spiritual Show radio program and podcast, author of Posting Peace, Why Social Media Divides Us, What We Can Do About It. Doug, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, we're better than you in some ways because I've been following along with you, and you've had yourself a tough week because another one's flown the coop.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe the nest. Let's call it the nest, not the coop.
Well, you know the problem with the nest, though? Don't you just build nests to have kids?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're gone. Is it still a nest or what is it?
No,
but
it's not.
I think a lot of your listeners are dealing with this. College, transition time, sending your kid off. We sent our third kid off to college. And no matter, this is the third kid. I think I'd have this figured out.
Is that your last kid?
No, we've got one more
Good.
coming. We've got a fourth. But the concept of just how difficult these transitions are, no matter how much you've prepared yourself for them, it's still amazingly difficult. And so, John and I were talking about that a little bit, but to maybe help people with this, because we don't talk a lot about it in our culture, but almost everyone is going through some sort of transition like this. Kids marrying, moving out of state, those sorts of things, and the incredible toll it can have on your heart.
Yeah. I remember when my oldest went to college, and I felt like I was pretty good with it until the day that it was happening. And I remember we left her at school, and we were driving out, and of course I was like, heaving, sobbing, not like a couple tears, but like, catastrophically crying.
Yeah.
And my husband said he was upset too, but he was not like heaving the same way I was. And he said, "So what are you thinking?" And I said out loud, "I'm thinking, what are we doing leaving her there?" That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's
a crazy transition.
It
isn't
felt
it?
unnatural. It felt like I was being a bad parent. Like that's not what parents are supposed to do, because there's so much of a transition. You don't realize in this next stage what parents are supposed to do because you've never done it.
Yeah, and I think it's supposed to feel that radical. I remember with one of our daughters, I could see the look in her eyes as we were leaving, that she didn't know anyone at this campus. Yeah. And that idea of this is not what we've been doing our whole life, with gradual things, with connecting with each other, with it's just suddenly into the deep end of the pool. And I put down some things here of ways to deal with this. And one of the things that I think you can do if you're in the middle of a big transition, particularly with your kids, is to be honest. Like sometimes we're worried about expressing how we feel, but it helps just to tell your kids this: I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been here before. This is terrifying to me. And not that you're laying anything on them. Like nothing has prepared me for this moment. So in the coming weeks and months, I'm probably going to be awkward. I'm probably not going to do this right because I don't know what right is. And if you can have that kind of dialogue, I think it frees your kids to be able to communicate with you in honest ways. And I think sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid we're going to say something to ruin the next relationship because now we're in a different season. But if you can develop talking in those ways, it's going to help you in the present, and it'll also help you in the future as more new things arise, marriages and kids and all these complications of how do I exist in my grown kids' lives.
That's really good. Okay, I'll take that, Doug. Now, the good thing is, and I, this is a blessing and a curse in some ways, is that as our kids have left and now we have the opportunity for our phones, I've tried to resist at every corner, although I do break down, texting my kids during the week and going, just checking in. Hey, not for them, but for me, right? Because I don't want, because, when we were in college, I was gone. And the last thing I thought about was my mom and dad. And so now this thing allows me to sort of intrude on their life, which softens the blow of the transition, but in some ways might mess them up a little bit.
Well, I think this, again, though, is where honesty really works. Not that you're a dishonest person, John, but the idea here is let your children know that. this is what I want to do. I want to connect with you all the time, but I'm afraid that's going to put too much on you. Now, again, if you are trying to be passive aggressive and you're trying to get answers from them you want, that's not really honesty. Right. But if you just generally say, because sometimes some kids will be like, yeah, no problem, no big deal. They're used to text, they'll ignore it. Or if it's okay if I don't answer, Dad, is that fine? Then you can have that dialogue. But I think a lot of parents get held hostage and we're so afraid. But the reality is we're going to be living this out the rest of our life. So this is just the first transition, and transitions are awkward. So I would really encourage people to just say those things like, am I texting you too much? Do you not want me to text you for a week? And if they're like, I don't want to make these decisions, then based on that kid, you may have to make those decisions. But I think as Christians, we're led by the Holy Spirit. We can pray. We don't have to be afraid, because fear is a terrible motivator, being afraid. And if you are afraid with your relationship with your kids, that's not going to get better. So now is the time to admit to that. I'm afraid of messing this up. Let me know what would be best to serve you. That's where you start having those dialogues, because it's only going to get more the exaggerations of fear or of connection based on how we interact.
Right. No, that's really good. We're talking to Doug Burch, co-pastor of Evergreen Foursquare Church, Auburn, Washington. Also, the author of Posting Peace, Why Social Media Divides Us and What We Can Do About It. If you're watching the show, or if you're not watching the show, you sure can log on to YouTube and go to the word Pittsburgh. Look, Doug just waved. Look, nice. I'll wave back.
That's right.
Because we got Doug on Zoom. Okay, Doug, so I think your idea about being as honest with your kids as you can is so important. And I like the caveat you put on it. You're not trying to make them emotionally responsible for you. And I think that's the trick, right? Is that you have to, be, and I learned this. Of course, I was better at it the second time than I was the first time. When my second daughter went to school, I said this all the time, I'm really going to miss you when you leave. I'm really going to miss you when you leave, because I wanted her to know that, and I wanted to be able to say it, but I wasn't saying it in a pathetic way, like that means I don't want you to go to college. Right. You know what I mean? But so you have to find that happy medium between being honest and not making them feel like feel guilty, or the fact that they have to be responsible for their parents' emotional psychological happiness.
Well, and this segments into, I actually had a couple points. Normally I'm just wandering around in our segments together, but the other idea is we need to know the different needs. The need of our kids is often to be able to differentiate themselves from us, to be able to exist on their own, to have their own lives, and to be supported in that. That's the need for our kids. What are our needs? Our need is we are afraid that we won't have a relationship anymore. So our need is, how do I stay connected? How can I be a part of your life? Those are different needs. And so the parent, that's usually what we're just trying to do, is I don't want you to disappear. I want to be a part of your life. I don't know how to be a part of your life. But as we communicate that, it can sometimes come at the fact that we're judging them for the decisions they're making and how they're differentiating themselves from us. So it's very important to recognize those needs and to speak in those terms, to be clear. I'm supporting what you're doing. I'm fine with you, being your own person. I'm just trying to figure out how to connect with you in the most positive way that supports you, that builds you up. And yes, your dad needs to have connection, or your mom needs to have connection. I mean, when my kids leave, I'm bawling in their room thinking, how am I going to survive? Mm-hmm. Right. But eventually you survive. Eventually you make it. But I need them to know that I need to be a part of their life, but I want to support them, as clearly their goal is to grow and have a larger view of the world than just being at home with their parents.
Right, to be independent, fully formed, right? Now, you said early on, the first transition, but I'm telling you, I'm such a baby. I remember when my first boy, left the crib and had his first big boy bed. Yeah. And I remember very clearly that night in that big boy bed, which was, one of those little tiny beds. He was sleeping in the big boy bed, and I got down on my knees and I cried like, oh no, he's left the crib and now everything's going to change forever and ever. So, I mean, parenting is different in the 21st century. I guarantee you, my dad, he didn't think about this stuff.
I don't know if that's true.
I think it is.
Well, I don't know.
Well, a little bit with men. I think there was this idea for men that you don't really hang out with your kids until they can interact with you and throw a ball and such. And I hope we have a better understanding that we bond with our kids at the earliest stages. And so maybe there's that greater connection. But I remember with kindergarten, when my daughter went to kindergarten, and just the concept, my oldest, that she is going to be away from us for that amount of time, felt like abandonment. I think it's the same thing with college, right? That's not what a good parent. I don't just leave her with someone else. I'm
I
constantly.
don't even know
watching her
that
kid.
person.
Exactly. And this to me is, some people feel like that's unhealthy. Like, well, a healthy person should be okay with this. I think we should embrace the pain. Love causes pain. When you're connected with someone, it would be worse if you're indifferent. If you're like, oh, whatever, we got free time now. That to me is a bigger problem, because when you love someone, you attach to them. And the appropriate response to when someone you love is more distant from you is there's pain. It doesn't mean that you don't support them in what they're doing, you're not excited about their life, but there's nothing wrong with admitting to your attachment and your emotional state. And if it's a loving relationship both ways, they'll want to know that too, as long as you also say, but I'm 100% for you and with you. And yeah, I'm crying. And both those things can exist. So if we could just be honest, because it does get better. We all know that you learn to live with these distances, but the transitions, those don't get better.
Aren't they?
No,
It's just the nature of life.
And here's the other thing that happens to me, Doug, and I don't know how old your older kids are, but you get, I went through my emotional breakdown when my oldest daughter left. I think I told you about, weeping and wailing, literally, as we were leaving the college. And that went on, I'm sorry to tell you, for 3 days. It wasn't like that was just a little blip. After the 3-day period, I thought, okay, so we need to reestablish some norms. So anyway, but then they come back. So you're okay. You establish yourself when they're gone, and then they come back, and then you have to reestablish that again.
But you weren't weeping and wailing for 3 days after they came back.
No, but it's just, I feel like it's a little bit of an emotional pendulum.
Well, with COVID, we've had a whole nother level of emotional pendulum. Many people have. You've spent all kinds of time with your family, which has either shown the strengths or weaknesses of your family, or both. And so I think even these transitions are becoming more traumatic in that sense, because there's been so much loss around us. There's been so much uncertainty. There's been so much outside our control, that these big changes, we're trying to just figure out how to exist in the world. And so whether it is, okay, now you're distant, now you're with me, now you're trying to figure that out when a lot of things are outside our control is a big issue. Right. And I realize our culture just doesn't talk about it, because it didn't get easier for me with the other kids. I remember just bawling with our second child, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm not going to be able to survive. Now I am able to survive, but no one really talked to me about that feeling. And because you're also embracing your mortality and what is life and what it's going to be like when the kid, and this is what I'd encourage Christians to do. We have daily bread faith. God, yesterday is gone and tomorrow hasn't been created yet. You have to live in the eternal now. And now sometimes that's hard in pain, because you're like, this feels like eternal, this pain. But the now means God will give me enough strength for today. He'll give me daily bread. And if you try to anticipate your future, you don't have it figured out. And so we'll feel bad now, and we'll think, that's my future. My future is feeling bad and alone and alienated and near death. And no. That's your emotions being projected out. God will give you enough strength for today, and he's going to give you strength tomorrow. And we know that looking back. We know in times in our life when things are really rough that it didn't stay that way. But man, when we're in the midst of a trauma, existence seems like the trauma is just going to be the rest of our life. So live in the daily bread, take one step at a time.
That's good. At the same time, though, when those kids are gone, I find myself going into their bedrooms and sitting on their bed and going, where is everybody? Which is really weird, right? It's just
you and I are so similar, and I don't even know why I'm doing that. I'll go into the room, I'm like, why am I in here?
To inflict
and
pain.
Just looking at his Legos, and I'm like,
Great. I bet you can watch Toy Story 3 maybe at the conclusion of the day, just to wrap it up.
Yeah, avoid all Pixar movies for at least a week, just as a general rule, if you want to not be on the floor in a fetal position.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Doug, always a pleasure. Thanks an awful lot. You give us some wisdom and some humor wrapped around that, so thanks again.
Oh, it is my pleasure to be on the Kathy and co-host show.
That is sweet how he says that. That's Doug Burch. Check out his book. I'm telling you, it's so good. Posting Peace, Why Social Media Divides Us and What We Can Do About It.
Very nice.
All right. Love you guys.
Love
See
you
you
too.
guys.
Take
Bye.
a break. We got more ahead. Stick around. It's The Ride Home with John and Kathy. We're Pittsburgh's Christian Talk here on Word FM. Making weekend plans, right?
You know what? I am. I was supposed to go away with my very dearest friends from high school this weekend, and one of them got sick. Joanne, I'm so sorry you're sick.
Sorry, Joe.
However, it has opened up this weekend as like an unplanned vista, and so I'm all aflutter, John, not knowing what to do.
Because now you've got some time on your hands.
I don't know.
Might I say you should be mindful with your phone?
Okay, I'll be mindful. Are you going to give me some directives on things I can investigate?
No, just here's some things to do this weekend.
Right.
This is the Great Race Weekend.
Yes.
Which is not the marathon
and
weekend.
It can never happen on a Saturday.
No.
It has to be on a Sunday
Right.
to mess up all of the city churches.
The last weekend of September, a mad dash with the running of the Richard S. Caligiuri race, a tradition since 1977.
Listen to how unpleasant I sounded.
Yeah, you
there.
sound bitter.
That's because I'm not a runner. If I was a runner, I'd think, oh, what a great thing. But since I'm not, I just get mad that all the roads are closed.
Begins at 9:30 Saturday, Point State Park downtown with a family fun run. The Tot Trot, 4 and under, the Diaper Dash for toddlers. The 5K
the
begins
diaper dash, that's awesome.
at 8 a.m. Sunday at 5th and Atwood in Oakland, followed by the 10K at 9 in Frick Park in Squirrel Hill. Racers receive a race shirt and a medal, and a portion of the proceeds will benefit the Richard S. Caligiuri Fund. I guess you can still register. Oh, listen, this is for you. The Pittsburgh Pierogi Festival.
Yes.
Yeah. It's,
Bring it.
Saturday's the last day of the regular season at Kennywood, and the Phantom Fun begins October 1st. So it's the Pierogi Fest on Sunday.
At Kennywood.
24 restaurants and chefs serving the dumplings with all varieties of fillings. Limited
love it.
tickets available at the door, $27. Do you know who Chris Stapleton is?
Sure. Oh, I love Chris Stapleton.
He's in town on Friday
Is he?
at Star Lake.
Really? Oh, man, I bet that would be a good
Yeah,
show.
Star
But I'm
Lake.
not going out to Star Lake.
Why not?
Because when's last time you were at Star Lake?
Oh, it's been a while.
Okay, I was there 2 years ago, and I wanted to put a pencil in my eye.
Why? It's still bad?
Yes.
Well, they haven't figured that out yet?
The parking. Getting out of the parking lot is the worst thing.
Okay. Well,
But Chris Stapleton is great.
$40. The Washington
And you pay $40 to park.
and probably $40 for something to drink.
There you go.
Washington Italian Heritage Festival, Friday and Saturday, the 5th annual Washington Italian Heritage Festival at the Community Pavilion in Washington kicks off at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. The PSO,
Okay.
Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, the opener Friday and Saturday
Oh,
of
that's
this
great.
weekend. Manfred Honeck leads the orchestra in Ravel and Tchaikovsky, $20.
Okay.
This evening, the Dawes, the LA band that emerged a decade ago with a Laurel Canyon folk rock sound, pulls into Roxanne and McKees Rocks.
Okay.
Alabama is
Wow.
headed to Pittsburgh.
Okay. This is those guys have to be pretty old.
50th anniversary tour to PPG Paints Arena, along with Randy Owen and cousin Teddy Gentry. Alabama, their 50th anniversary
I
tour.
thought they were kind of old when I was a kid.
They'll be on stools. They'll just be sitting on stools,
Okay.
right? That's what happens. When you get to be that age, you're going to go, it becomes like Perry Como, the most relaxed singer. It kind of like, I want to tell you, the Perry. Chatham Baroque kicks off Saturday, Sunday as well. Sunday, Raul Malo leads the Tex-Mex greats, the Mavericks, at the Byam Theater. There's a lot going on.
Okay.
Right?
I can't pick.
I don't know.
It's a lot of pressure, actually, all of a sudden,
Or you can just stay home.
and do nothing.
Just stay home. That's what I plan on doing.
Okay.
Right? I'm doing the transition from T-shirts to sweatshirts. That's my weekend.
That's too early for that.